Gold has always symbolized wealth, power, and success, but the reality behind it is far more complex. From environmental damage and resource extraction to the lives of communities living near mines, the story of gold is not just about value, it's about consequences. Sustainability is often presented as a solution, but what does it actually mean in practice? And how much of what we hear reflects reality? And how much is it shaped by narratives, interests, and influence? In a world where information spreads faster than ever, understanding gold mining is no longer just a technical issue. It's a question of truth, perception, and responsibility. So finally, it has been a long time trying to get this interview done.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But then we finally managed to have a seat
Yeah.
and talk about the research and this topic. So basically, what is the focus of your PhD?
Oh well, my PhD is focused on gold mining, right? I know whenever I say that, people laugh, but it's focused on small-scale gold mining. And the aim of my research is to improve the health, environmental, social, basically health, safety, and environmental factors of small-scale gold mining. So the implications of these sort of mining, and also how it interweaves with artisanal mining. My research is basically focused on developing a framework that can help us to improve the health, safety, and environmental implications of small-scale gold mining, a case study of North Central Nigeria.
Okay. So what's your motivation? What motivated you? Why did you choose this topic?
I'm a geologist.
You as a geologist.
I'm a
okay.
geologist and an environmentalist. So basically, there are lots of motivating factors. I always wanted to make a difference, to become an authority in the field that I've chosen to, grow my career path in, which is geology and environmental. And being that sort of a person who wants to be an authority, I've taken on responsibilities in the past. After having a master's from Coventry University in environmental management, I decided to go to Oxford to do some sort of GPS training too, and then went back to Africa to support the regulation of mining in Africa. And that meant that I had to go to the field. I had to attend international meetings in the ECOWAS region and also in meetings that were organized by the African Union. I was fortunate to be chosen to be one of the country representatives at certain points to attend these meetings, and also went all the way to South Africa to attend the mining in Indaba, as a delegate for the country. And in these fora, what we're looking at is, coming up with solutions to be able to ensure that mining is more sociable, is more safe. Mining is done to meet international standards. And I realized that the large-scale miners or large-scale mining, they find it easy to sort of comply with regulatory standards. However, the small-scale miners and artisanal miners struggle.
Okay.
The junior miners, that's some new term that came up recently, not too far away. They also do their best to comply because sometimes they're also funded. They've been able to, perhaps get fully into the market and attract funding, attract investors. But the small scale miners do struggle in that area, and artisanal miners too. So it becomes difficult. All the aim for is how to make profits, and the other responsibilities do suffer. So we were trying to see how we can make a difference. People were dying. In 2010, there was a mining incident in Nigeria, and a lot of women and children died. And it was a global event because we had Doctors Without Borders in there. We had loads of international organizations coming to offer support to clean up the environment. And this happened in Zamfara State, where there was a mining epidemic, and we lost
Which country
children.
was this?
In Nigeria.
Nigeria. Oh.
Yeah, in Zamfara State. We lost women and children.
And was this a small scale or a large scale?
I mean, there were few
gold mining?
small scale mining, but mainly artisanal mining. And in fact, the small scale mining were probably a conglomerate of artisanal miners who came together to form what we call, mini cooperatives.
Okay.
But basically, the reason why the accident or the incident happened at the time was basically because there were, lack of proper safety adherence, and that was where, the whole, should I say, a second push and the motivation to make a change began.
Yeah, and that's the biggest challenge, I would guess,
That's
around
it.
gold mining
That's
altogether,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah. So one of those visits, I went to the field and I met Abdul. Abdul is a boy I met on the field. He lost his parents in that. He lost his dad. His dad was a miner. His dad came home with the poison and got his siblings, two sisters and his mother also died. And he is alone taking care of the last child, a boy taking care of a child. So he's a boy miner, and I met him in the field. I had a conversation with him. I was almost in tears. And when I got back, I said to myself, we need to start making, noise about the situation and see how we can create a lasting change.
Yeah.
So I thought we could begin from, developing a framework and then see how we can say we can do research and contribute our quota. It might just be a drop in the ocean, but
Well, that's the reason I decided to do a podcast for this, to make a bit more noise.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day we'll make a big noise about this.
Yeah. Every mile begins with a step. So I think this is just a step, hopefully in the right direction.
So, what does sustainability in gold mining mean in practice? When we say, because sustainability is a word that you see it's becoming more and more popular everywhere. So, what do we mean, and how does that sustainability apply in the gold mining?
Well, in gold mining, sustainability means the ability to mitigate certain unwanted circumstances that integrates or that can be aligned with the sustainable development goals. So apart from that, we can delve deeper into saying that it should be, an environmental conscious mining. It should be socially conscious. It should be, ethical. There should be support to enable miners mine in such a way that they consider the environmental aspect of the mine, they consider the health aspect of the mine, they consider the social aspect of the mine. How does what they're doing, how does it impact on communities? And so ESG plays a huge role in terms of being able to have a mining done sustainably. So ESG, I mean environment, social, governance standards, does play a big role. So sustainability in gold mining entails the mitigation of environmental nuisance or environmental degradation, mitigation of social vices that results from mining, gold mining, and the reduction of unethical practices, the increase of the adherence to PPE and safety standards.
Is there a big gap between what is being said to people to what is actually happening on the actual gold mining on the actual ground?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. When you say a gap, there are several gaps, but that does not mean that information is not passed on.
Okay, but is the information being hidden at times? Maybe like incidents that happen and no one knows about them.
Of course, um, I thought we are going to come to that later, but
Okay.
yes, there are issues related to that. Not necessarily being hidden,
Okay.
but there may not be structures to record incidences and near misses that happen in the field, especially if we're looking at the area that I am working on, which is small scale gold mining. You know, however, in the large scale and junior mining sectors, they do have that. They're reported because they have structures to report that. But in small scale gold mine, like I said, miners are focused on other things rather than adhering to compliance standards. So yes, so that could be like incidents are not properly reported, or in some cases are not entirely reported. However, it may not be interpreted as to though they are being hidden.
So it's the experience of the whole thing when it comes to the community. Do the communities experience it any different to how it is presented to them by the companies?
Well, mining is some sort of it's a destructive, activity. So a company goes into a land and there's a lot of pillage done. So plants are uprooted or destroyed. Animals are sent packing from their lands. The habitat is completely destroyed. So, and every habitat belongs to a community or two.
How much land does it like
Well, it,
acquire?
it depends on
Or
the
one gold
scale
mine?
of
Okay. So
mining.
when it's a small scale, when you say small
For a
scale,
small scale mining, we're looking at 2 to 3 football fields.
wow. Okay.
Because you're trying to follow a seam, and it'll go for like miles. And in order to do that, you need to dig deep into the ground, take off the subsurface materials until you hit the rock or the bed that you're chasing that has the mineral
And
load in
how
it.
deep do you need to go?
It depends on the mineralization.
Like
In some
on average,
cases,
what would you
but
say?
there are no averages. In some
On average,
cases, you can meet the minerals on the surface.
even on the surface.
Yeah, because
Wow.
rocks have been overturned over centuries, and sometimes you have some rocks that are already, you know, um, tilting towards the surface, and you just dig, scratch up the surface, and you might find minerals. And it also depends on the kind of minerals you're looking for. But in a normal circumstance, you're looking at going deep into the earth's surface. Yeah, especially when you're trying to mine minerals like coals. If you're following a coal seam, it could take you really, really deep into the earth's crust.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think in order to go that deep, not I think, in fact, in order to go that deep, you need proper machineries, you need proper structures, proper systems.
Gold mining as an act, as a business, is something that people know less about. Like the knowledge is limited, including my knowledge about it. It's very limited. So the question is, how is gold mining portrayed publicly, or do companies and activists present mining differently?
Um, are you trying to talk about the image of gold mining or gold itself?
No, the gold
Gold
mining.
mining itself. So um, mining companies that don't just mine one mineral. So they mine a couple of minerals or more that can be mined together. So there are
Okay.
certain minerals that occur together.
So you can have a gold mining, but you can have a silver mining as well.
Yes, in some places where we have gold
I thought you were
depositions, we
specializing
also
in one.
have silver depositions. You might specialize, not specialize, you might use a single mineral initially to request for a license or a mining permit. But when you go to the field, you'll have other minerals and you'll have some gang. Sometimes the main mineral that is of important or is high in occurrence are the minerals that are used to apply for the license. However, when you get that, when you obtain your ore, you will be able to process more than one mineral out of the ore. So it now depends on which of the minerals that are economically viable. Those are the minerals that you will put out to the market. Those are the minerals that you will invest more in your, what's it called? In your, in the development of your ore, in the preparation of your ore, into minerals.
Okay. So I'm going back to what I'm trying to extract from you.
Yeah, you're extracting from me indeed.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to extract how the public image about gold mining is created and who is the most responsible who's doing that. Is it the activists? Is it the companies? How is the public perception about gold mining created? Who is the most influential when it comes to that?
Okay, now I understand your question. The perception depends on what the people are feeling. So if a mining company that's mining gold comes to Wolverhampton and is well accepted by the people, and they obtain their license, and they meet with in Nigeria, that's what we call a CDA, a Community Development Agreement.
Okay.
And they meet with the Community Development Agreement, and they meet the requirements of the local council, and they meet the requirements of the state, and they meet the requirements of the federal or the national bodies, they wouldn't have a problem. They will do their mining peacefully, and the community will be happy with them because they're meeting the Community Development Agreement. A Community Development Agreement, or CDA, involves a lot of things. So some companies make promises that they are going to build schools, they're going to build roads, they're going to provide water or electricity, depending on what the community needs, depend on the agreement they were able to reach before mining begins.
Okay. What about the online influence, the online narrative?
I'm coming to that point.
Okay.
So if they're able to meet that, they wouldn't have a problem. The perception is right. When activists, when influencers online approach community members, they will tell them, oh, this company has been doing this for us, they've been doing that for us, or there was a problem here, and they cleaned it up immediately. And so the company is going to have a good perception.
So
online.
usually okay.
So when mining has a bad perception, it means that the mining company may have not been able to carry out its or her responsibilities properly,
Okay.
and have left some loopholes that people are now complaining about.
Okay. So that has happened in the past then.
Oh, well, that happens in several places. And sometimes there are some people that they've seen a lot of, the mining companies have disappointed them so much that they don't wait for, they don't give them graces. So once there is a problem, once there is a spillage, once there is, destruction somewhere, even when mining companies are trying to come and trying to get a license, they go against it.
Okay. Are there any specific influencers or any specific groups that can oppose any activities?
But there are friends of the earth. Friends of the earth at some point.
Friends of the earth.
Yeah, were going against things that were not environmentally friendly. And we also have Environment 360 or thereabout. I think Environment 360. So they also are environmental organizations. They think that anything that has to do with extraction, mineral extraction. I use your word again. It's not good for the planet, and so it should not be done.
So do these activists have any actual influence on the extraction of gold, in gold mining?
Well, I think they do.
They do.
They do. In some countries, mining itself, not just gold mining, mining is coming to a close. For example, in most of the European countries, it's very difficult to have a mining license currently. Most of the coal mines in the UK have all shut down. Okay. So active mining in the UK is only occurring in Wales and in Scotland.
Okay.
And then this does not mean...
So they are influential, that they do.
Oh, yes. This does not mean that it's maybe out as a result of influencers, but influencers influence government policies. Stories are told, people believe them,
Exactly.
and that's why we are doing what we're doing as researchers, right? We're trying to have a voice. We're trying to become authorities in the field. So when we speak, people will listen.
Yeah.
To say, yes, there are negativities. However, there's a good that can come out of it. There are activities that can be done sustainably.
Can that be done the other way around when you can spread out misinformation?
Well, obviously, when you know better, your research is influencing the public
So
through social media. So
it can happen then.
why not? It's been happening.
With humans.
Yeah, it's been happening. I mean, and again, people want bad news. Bad news is good news nowadays. People just want news. They don't care how terrible it is or who is being hot from the news. They just put it out there because they want views and they want clicks and they want impressions. So yes, it can happen.
So if someone doesn't know anything about gold mining and they go to the social media as a source of informing themselves, would they be getting the right information about gold mining and the actual reality that has been happening?
Yes.
Or is this reality distorted through the social media?
Well, it depends. It depends on the source you're going to. There are reliable sources.
There are reliable sources.
There are reliable sources. Of course, if you go to the internet, there are great sources.
Okay.
If you want to hear, news about food, you go to the food news sources, pro-food news sources. There are pro-mining news sources. There are pro-mining social media handles. And if you go to those sources, you will hear exactly what is happening. For example, in Nigeria, we have what is called the Rock Post. The Rock Post is one of the foremost, non-governmental publishing house. And so the news they put out there are authentic. They ensure that they go to the government and verify that the news is right. They ensure that they call the private sector and know what is happening. They ensure that they reach out to the community, which are the three major arms, you see. So the government as a regulatory body, the private sector as those doing the actual mining, the non-governmental sectors as those trying to balance narrative, and then the host community.
Okay. So who has the most power then in gold mining altogether?
Well, powers are being shared. You can't say who has the most power. The government gives licenses. The community.
So the government has the most power.
The community must allow you to mine in their place.
Okay. So it's both.
That's why I said. That's why I said the powers are shared.
You need to find the middle ground.
Well, there's always a need for that. For you to have a successful operation, you need to be able to reach out and fulfill the responsibilities that you ought to fulfill.
Okay.
In order to be able to carry out mining.
That was my next question about responsibility. So is fairly distributed among stakeholders?
In my research, I interviewed and also ensured that I got respondents to my quantitative survey from government officials, from the private sector, from non-governmental counterparts, including host communities, so that I have a balanced view of what the people are saying. So I have a balanced perception of how respondents on the quantitative angle are responding. Because using a quantitative research, you're able to direct the narrative. But when it's qualitative, it's open-ended. People talk. You can be able to manage, but you can't stop them from saying what they want to say.
Right.
So you have a rich information, but it could be too rich. Well, when you have a quantitative perspective, you're able to ask the questions that you want, perhaps using Likert scale. So you have a lot of, factors for permutations and all that. But you are directing it, and then you can now balance it with the information you have from the qualitative angle of the research. The reason I say this is because you need to have a balance. You need to have information right. So you go to the people to get the right sources. In doing so, you will be able to see that the voices, the power, like you call it, is spread across. So government tries to ensure regulation. Government tries to ensure compliance. The private sector wants to make profit.
Yeah.
The host community wants to be able to attract responsible miners, responsible private sector. So there should be a balance of these factors as they interplay within the mining sector or this gold mining subsector.
Okay. So you see a balance there.
Well,
At least they're trying.
if there was a balance, there will not be issues.
Okay.
There are always imbalances. Not everyone is meeting up to their responsibilities.
And I guess this is where sustainability is coming.
And that's where sustainability comes into play.
Exactly.
Because we're trying to eliminate the consequences from these imbalances.
Okay. So how has your experience then working internationally influenced your perspective on mining?
I've been fortunate to have international experience, yes. But I wouldn't say it has influenced my perspective on mining that
So you
much.
have worked in other countries as well?
Oh yes, I
apart from
have. I
Nigeria?
have. I mean,
Okay.
I'm here with you in England, so
Yeah, that's you studying here. You're not working.
you know, I did work here.
No,
I have
no, I mean
worked here in
working-
several positions. Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, the last position I took here was being a project manager, a national project manager for a project, although it's not in the mining sector, but a project that has to do with research, which
Okay.
boosts my understanding and knowledge and expertise in research, conducting research on people.
Right.
And the
Okay.
perspective.
That was my point about gold mining work.
I know. That's
Like
why I had to
direct-
highlight
directly.
that alone. You know,
Okay.
and apart from that, I have been conducting trainings before, before I began my doctoral research.
Mhm.
And coming here and being able to lecture in the engineering department, lecture in the project management, that has also boosted my ability to, sort of educate and transfer valuable information from one generation to another.
Okay.
So, and I have been able to see how that can influence perspective. I was invited to London last year. You know about that, to talk to professionals that came from various countries in Africa, and that was amazing because I wasn't just giving a lecture. I did give an opportunity for us to brainstorm on several issues, and you can see how brainstorming with high level officials, both in government and in the private sector, can actually transform the way you see things.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that changed my perspective, but I'm saying it enriched my perspective. It enabled me to see things from various angles. It enabled me to see that change is possible.
Okay. So is there any difference between local and international understanding when it comes to gold mining?
Oh yes, because locally you're sort of submerged by the activities and happenings that are going on. But when you're able to come out of the local environment, you're able to see, if you are lucky to pull yourself out of the situation and look at it from an outsider view, you can take a different stand. You can be able to sympathize with those you ought to sympathize with, and they'll be able to see that, oh, this is wrong, this has to change. So yes, that can influence the way you see things.
Okay. So being an outsider, then it can provide you with a different insight into this.
Yes, it does provide you with a different insight because you're able to see what's happening in other places too, not just being submerged in the activities that are going on in there. You're able to take some time out and and analyze the information you get from other regions, other mining regions, and perhaps similar mining regions or even better mining regions, and then simulate this information you get and sort of create a new understanding for yourself and see that other people have done it this way. I think it can be done this way, or we're doing it this way. We have not even tried this.